right, here we go. So we're starting chapter 33, which is the invertebrates, which, as hopefully you remember, most animals are invertebrates. Most animals lack bones. And just like I did with the plant kingdom, I'm starting with this sort of barren slide. It's ocean and some rock. So anybody have an idea what point I'm trying to get at here? Any volunteers? Alex. Ding, 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 they meaning animals. All right, yeah. I'm just reminding us here that the oceans were the cradle of life. And just like the plant ancestor started in the, appeared first in land, so did animals. So as we work through these phyla, most of these are going to be aquatic organisms. All right, we'll see some. So that's just a little reminder there. And the same way that plants had obstacles to evolving and adapting to terrestrial life, we'll see some of the same in the animal kingdom. So let's get started on the invertebrates. So we did our little review of phylogeny. So just to review that animals are a clade and sponges are at the base of this tree of life, if you will. All right, so let's start with the sponges. Sponges all used to be put in one phylum called Porifera. And that made sense because they have little holes. So it made sense to call them phylum Porifera. But now we've classified them into at least two phyla. Because again, our little darling molecule, darling DNA, said the grouping of Porifera was paraphyletic. So we now have at least two phyla. By the time you graduate, who knows, there could be more. One phylum is Calcarea, and the spicules are made of calcium carbonate. So anybody know where you can go get some calcium carbonate? I'm actually really, yeah, Andrew? Yeah, chalk right here. Actually, I was having a little bit of indigestion. I could take a little bite and eat some if I wanted. So yeah, chalk is made out of calcium carbonate, and so are the spicules of some sponges. Another phylum of sponges is called Selacia, and in phylum Selacia, the spicules are made of silica, which is also known as silicon dioxide, which basically is glass. So think about it. You know, when you look at a sponge, its internal structure, if you will, its spicules could be made out of chalk or could be made out of glass. So main characteristics of sponges. They are sessile. Can anybody tell me what sessile means? Alex? Good. They're stationary. This is not a biological term per se. So they're stationary, which you're getting your tuition dollars worth, right? Sponges don't move around. They are main characteristics. They are asymmetrical. They have porous bodies. And they lack true tissues and organs. So they're probably the most primitive type of animals in existence today. But again, there's still great diversity in the grouping formerly known as Porifera. Okay, other features of sponges. They live in both freshwater and in marine environments in the ocean. So again, we're talking aquatic animals here. Even though they don't have specialized tissues or specialized organs, they do have some specialized cells. One is called the choanocytes. Now you guys should know by now what cyte means in biology, right? We can fake our way through a lot of biology if we know what the prefixes and suffixes mean. Who remembers what cyte means? Cell. So this literally means collar cells, the choanocytes. And the other type of specialized cell are the amoebocytes. You might remember amoeba is a protist that moves slowly, crawls slowly around. Well, these cells, so this literally means amoeba cells, and these cells in the sponges, they look like little amoebas. So, they're animals. If you look at a sponge, you wouldn't think of it as an animal. The ancient Greeks, they divided all living things into either the animal group or the plant group, and they thought they were plants. So since we know they're animals, they must have the characteristics of the animal kingdom. So what are the defining characteristics of the animal kingdom again? Julia. Good. So first of all, they're multicellular eukaryotes, and they get their energy by eating. So let's take a closer look on how they feed. All right, so here is a real sponge. Here is a diagrammatic view of a sponge. Who remembers what seal means in biology? Good, cavity. So spongocele, oh, there you go. It's the cavity inside a sponge. So don't get overwhelmed with this. This is all logical. So the cavity inside the sponge is a spongocele. Whenever you see the prefix "os," that means opening or mouth. So basically, sponges are filter feeders or suspension feeders. And we'll get a close-up view of how this works in a minute. So basically, these little collar cells, they have flagella, they create a current, and water is brought in, sort of sucked in through these little side holes, and then it leaves through the opening on the top, through the osculum. So you get a definitely current. So by these little collar cells beating their little tails, they create a current, and any debris, any little particles floating around here, move through the side pores and up through the top of the animal. Now we'll take a little close-up look at one of these collar cells. So as these food particles are moved upward, they're caught in this little netting of the collar cells, and there's mucus on there to help catch these little food particles, just whatever's floating around in the ocean. So these little food molecules are moved down, and they enter the collar cell by phagocytosis. And the collar cell might use the food particles itself, or this is really just wild, I think. They might transfer the food particles to the amoeba site, the amoeba cell. And then the amoeba cells crawl throughout the animal, through the middle layer here, and they deliver food to other cells. So isn't that wild? So, I mean, it looks very just simple, but it actually has a fair amount of complexity, and it works. All right? This is how it overcame the problem of how to get its food. All right, but it's a filter feeder. It pretty much just has to sit there and take whatever comes. Any questions about sponges? We'll talk about sponge reproduction. They, like all animals, most animals tend to reproduce sexually. And in the ocean, this is pretty easy. Sperm are released and they swim through the water and find an egg to fertilize. Now, most sponges are hermaphrodites. Does anybody know what a hermaphrodite is? Daniela? Good. They have both. A hermaphrodite has both ovaries and testes. So one sponge might even have, on the same animal, might have several testes and several ovaries. But again, in the animal kingdom, in sexual reproduction, it's better not to self-fertilize. So some sponges probably can self-fertilize, but probably most have evolved a block to self-fertilization. But once again, sexual reproduction in the water is pretty easy because you got water for the sperm to swim through. Everybody got it? So those are the sponges. So if we go through that little tree, your little roadmap, all right, sponges were our basal animals. Now we're moving to phylum Cnidaria, which used to be called Coelenterata. As a matter of fact, this was on Jeopardy just last week. And they sort of got it wrong. Let's see, the answer, I forget what the answer was. You know how they start with the answer? And I yelled it out. I said, what is Cnidaria or what is Coelenterata, depending on which nomenclature you're using. And here, sure enough, Alex Trebek said, what is Coelenterata? So they were using the old name on Jeopardy. I felt like writing Alex Trebek. All right. So Coelenterata means the hollow-bodied animals, and these include jellies, right? Not jellyfish. We'll be a little bit PC when we remember it, all right? Corals, hydra, and sea anemones. So, what are our characteristics of cnidarians? What kind of symmetry do they have? Radial, good. All right. First characteristic that I'm going to mention is that they have true tissues. They are diploblastic, which means they form two germ layers. They only form ectoderm and endoderm. And as you just said, they have radial symmetry. Other key features of cnidarians, they possess a nerve net. So yes, we're getting the evolution of a nervous system. And when you look at videos of them swimming, you can see the nerve net twitches and the whole animal, all the parts of the animal move together. It's very beautiful, actually. They also have specialized cells. They're called cnidocytes. And the cnidocytes have little stingers in them called nematocysts. So again, just look at this word. A cyte is the cell found in phylum Cnidaria. And how the significant aspect of cnidocytes, the cells found in cnidarians, is that they contain these little stingers called nematocysts. Anybody ever get stung by a jellyfish? So you had your first-hand experience with nematocyst. Was it fun? Oh, right in the face? Ouch, that would not be fun at all. All right, this I think is very interesting about cnidarians. They have two body forms. They have a polyp form and a medusa form. And here you see it. If you imagine a vase with tentacles, that would be a polyp form, all right? That would be the polyp form. Imagine a vase with tentacles. And notice that the polyps are sessile. They are the sessile form, the stationary form of the animal. What's also nice about this is it's color-coded. So even though we now call this layer epidermis, what we're seeing is this is derived from ectoderm, and then the lining of the gastrovascular cavity, it was derived from endoderm. Remember, every biology book in the world denotes ectoderm as blue and endoderm as yellow. So here we have the polyp form. Imagine a vase. The mouth would be up on top with the tentacles. Now, if you flipped your vase upside down and squished it a little bit, so it sort of looks like a Darth Vader helmet with all sorts of snakes coming out, that would be the medusa form. All right. Now, Medusa actually was a character, a person, whatever, in Greek mythology. Talk to your neighbor. See what you know about Medusa. Have you ever heard of Medusa before? All right, you can tell me what Medusa looked like. Yeah. Ah! Yeah, there's Medusa. She had snakes coming out of her head. And she was very scary. And besides the fact that she had snakes growing out of her head, why else was she scary? Yeah, Tommy? That's right. If you made eye contact with her, you would turn to stone. So this is Medusa. So again, this is one time I think we got it right. All right. You know, when you look at these Medusa forms of jellyfishes, jellies, excuse me. All right. It looks like these snakes are coming out. All right, before I show you some videos, I just want to notice a couple other features. Cnidarians, they have a gastrovascular cavity, all right? Remember, it means hollow body. And what it means is that they don't have a completely formed digestive tract. Their mouth is their anus. So if this is a jelly hunting, you know, food comes in here, and then it digests what it can, and debris comes out. So, yeah, mouth and the anus is the same opening, yeah. No, they do not. So here, after we go through Medusa again, here we have a little quiz. So this cnidarian is a hydra. Hydra, has anybody seen it before? It's a little pond water organism. So this whole animal might only be about 2 or 3 centimeters long here, plus the tentacles. Very delicate, beautiful little pond water organism. And then most of you are familiar with jellies. So the hydra has what body form? This is the polyp form, and the jelly has what body form? Medusa. All right, so we are going to look at some videos of these guys before we go further.